Okay, round one. Really exciting round here, and I have a great hand, so that's great. And yeah. And I'm against McWinSauce, so we'll see what he plays. Usually blue decks. Ugh, blue controlling decks, and I have a nice hand. I don't have a 3-drop. You know, it's awkward, but you have the Pellet Collector into Barkhide Troll. That's like the growth spotter into Reclamation. Here comes the Nissa. Not exactly the best draw you want to see at this point, but it's useful. It's a useful tool, you know, at some point. So yeah, really good start here. We basically have a Reality Smasher down, 5 power. So yeah, really nice start. And yeah, they play a Shockland, pass. I draw Rams through, and you know, I attack. Not the best draw at this point, but you know, we have what we have, and you play with that. So yeah, they're gonna Growth Spiral end of turn and untap. And we got some damage in, so it's pretty good. And they cast a Landing Warrior Visionary, so I'm just gonna ram through it because I just wanna curve out, because I just want to use my mana. Like, Landing Warrior Visionary is decent. Like, yeah, it draws a card, but it's still a good card in play. Like, it's a 2/2 and it makes a mana. You know, I'm not trying to win by some card advantage, some long game plan. I'm trying to just get some pressure on. So that's why I do it. It was like pretty clear to me I want to do this because I'm either gonna, if I draw a 4-drop, I can't cast anything. But if I draw a land, I want to cast a spell. I want to get this Visionary out of the way, etc. I mean, it could be wrong, but it seemed pretty clear to me in the moment to cast it. Just want to use my mana and, you know, keep developing the board, stuff like this. Maybe it is a higher win rate to, you know, just sandbag it for later, but yeah. So I draw a Stone Coil, and exactly, you know, pretty rewarded for using it, assuming that you want to kill the Visionary. You know, if you don't want to kill the Visionary, but I felt like it has a pretty good impact on the game because it makes a mana. But yeah, I don't know. They could cast like Sublime Epiphany next turn, for example. Hydroid Crisis, I don't know. So they go to 5. They take some beats down. And yeah, we're in a pretty good spot. We had a pretty good draw overall. We have a couple of questing beasts, and we have a bunch of haste creatures in hand, and they're at a low life. So yeah, they play Jolriel. They cycle the Boon, and they pass back to me. And I draw Barkhide Troll, so I just go to attacks and see what happens, because there's no reason to play it now, really. Unless you could think of a reason. So they chump block twice, so it kind of feels like, okay, maybe they have a Wrath, but maybe they have an Uro. Well, not maybe they have a Wrath. They would be dead if they didn't block twice. So I do play the Barkhide Troll here, because the reason is, if my opponent had Uro, I don't want them to just play Uro and get it back, because they would get to 8 life, and they would have a, what do you call it, a 6/6 in play, and then all of a sudden I would have 6, like, so I just do this to hedge against Uro, because even if they have a Wrath, it's not like not playing the Barkhide Troll is that good. I already have a hand full of hate, like, I don't feel like there's that many games where they're going to play Wrath, and then I play Barkhide Troll, and it's great, because and then, you know, that was just my feeling. I felt like, so I just did this to play around Uro. It made a lot of sense to me, basically. Also, them playing Boon of the Wishgiver made me feel they're less likely to have Shatter the Sky in their deck. It made me think it might be more of a Flash Bant deck, more all in on Jolriel, so less Shatters, more Uros. So it seemed pretty clear to me based on that. Like, yeah, like basically, like, I don't think if they cast Shatter, having the Barkhide Troll in hand is even that good. And if they cast Uro, I want to cast this Troll, so that way they can't just win with Uro. So now they're just gonna do nothing and scoop. So sideboarding, cut. So actually I sideboard a bit differently than normal, because the cards I thought this was kind of like Canisters, kind of Bant Flash deck. So it was less traditional, less like ECDs and maybe even Glass Caskets, less traditional win conditions, less Hydroid Crisis. So I just sided out 4 Generator, I brought in 4 Ceratops. Because I started leaving all the Ramsters, because I thought they have Night Pack Ambusher, you know, too. Because sometimes you can cut that against them, but I thought they have Night Packs, and they have more Jolriels, and they're more all-in on Jolriel with Boon of the Wishgiver. You can side in Last Struck Beast. You could even side in OKM Adversary or Primal Might, you know. Primal Might particular, if you think they have, like, I don't know, like Elder Gargaroth. Some people play that. So yeah. I don't know why I was looking at my sideboard here. Maybe I was. So yeah, there you can see. I opened this hand. Sure, it's a fine hand. It's not the best hand possible, but I'm going to keep it because it has a curve, something to play on turn 2 and 3, and then some good haste creatures. And even a mobilized district thrown in there as a, as a toy. So yeah. A barkhide troll. Unfortunate draw because it's going to make the next turn complicated. Because now, before it was pretty easy which 2-drop to play. You play the Preserver. Now you have to think about this troll tool. Do you want to play the troll? Yeah, you can see it was getting intense. I had to turn the music up. And they play Temple of Mystery, so here they're like, oh yeah, 2 tap lands. Like, I gotta take advantage of this. Nice for me. No Gross Barrel, No Joel Riel, Really fortunate. And, let's see. So I did debate a little bit what to play. I think I ended up going with Wildborn Preserver because this means next turn I can use I can play Barkhide and put a counter on the Preserver, so I can use all 3 mana. But you do have to think about stuff like, does that make me vulnerable to Wrath, since Wildborn Preserver is like a slash creature, since, stuff like this. So I think about this. I'm like, well, Wildborn Preserver is flash. But I'm like, I don't really want to play Ooze too because, like, I could go Barkhide Troll and pass, and it kind of quote unquote plays around Shatter, but like, I felt like Shatter's probably gonna be pretty good against me anyway, and I would rather want to focus on like curving out well and stuff like this, and yeah, like if I just play a Barkhide Troll and then like they don't need a Shatter, like they're at 20 life and I have a 3/3, right? So I just wanted to get the pressure on, be mana efficient. Yeah, and no, they play Opt. And yeah, the thing about the Wildborn Preserver, like you can play a main phase to play around, Mystical Dispute or Neutralize, but the thing is that they could also have Glass Casket, so it's kind of a close call for sure. So they play Uro, and yeah. And that's going to backfire, because that's one thing I didn't consider that much, I remember. I didn't consider, well, what if they play an Uro? Now I want to play Barkhide Troll, and then I want to play Ooze plus Eat It, because now my creature's just going to be smaller, right? So then playing Uro kind of sidetracks my plan for a few reasons. Number one, it's just like I'd rather have Barkhide Troll if I know that they're going to play Uro, because now I want to eat it with Ooze. Obviously, I could wait, but then it's kind of risky, because then what if they like Acer Gust my Ooze and they get back Uro? Or it's just risky to leave the Uro in play, And I draw a second Ooze, and like now the whole I remember I felt pretty bad. I'm like, man, I mess it up. Their start kind of maybe implied they had an Uro in hand. I mean, not really, but maybe. I mean, I don't know. But I mean, that's one of their main 3-drops. Because if they have Teferi, it doesn't matter which 2-drop I play really. And if they have Uro, maybe I'd rather play Barkhide Troll. So maybe I should have considered that. Maybe you want to consider what creature's better if they play Uro. But I don't know. Also, because another thing is like the Wildborn Preserver scales better into the late game. So let's say they like untap and Wrath me. I'd probably rather have the Preserver in my hand because it has flash and it can grow and stuff like this. Like, at this kind of point in the game, like, the Troll is better early and the Wildborn Preserver is better late, but I was just trying to be mana efficient. Well, yeah. So now I'm just going to play Ooze, eat their dude, pass. They cycle, they play Teferi, they pass. So now I feel like, I was feeling pretty bad. I'm like, man, if I had this Troll in play, it would be, like, way better, etc., etc. So here it's kind of an interesting choice, but I just go with Questing Beast because, like, it's kind of sketchy, like, what if they have ECD, but it kind of makes them have ECD, because if I just play, I mean, I could play Barkhide Troll and level up my Wildborn Preserver twice, but then I'm doing way less damage, because right now I can deal 6 damage to them, because I attack Preserver and Questing Beast at them and kill Teferi, whereas if I do that, they take no damage, because assuming I attack if I want to remove Teferi. And so, yeah, and it's just, then they could, like, bounce the Wildborn Preserver. Like, they could play another Teferi, bounce the Wildborn Preserver, and then I, like, have a Troll in play, whereas now if they have another Teferi, it's going to be hard for them to cast. So that's kind of why I did this. And even if they have ECD, I have a bunch of Oozes, so there's a pretty good chance I can eat what they play. So it's, like, fine. Like, ECD is, like, a 1-for-1 exchange, so I'm just, like, fine with this. Like, yeah, so I pass to them, and they play Nissa, and they animate a land. So now it's kind of complicated. So I draw the castle, And yeah, this is gonna be a classic example of like, okay, so my like number one, you can think, do they have Aether Gust, whatever, spell. So my first option, I could play Shifting Ceratops, give it haste, and then I could attack two things or everything at Nissa. My second option, I could play Barkhide Troll or Ooze and grow my Wildborn Preserver. And yeah, I think those are my main options. Or I could play like two Barkhide Trolls and grow my Preserver one time. And that's kind of interesting. I need to think like, what could they have in hand? Could they have like Hydroid Crisis, Shatter the Sky, blah 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 blah. I like also Shifting Ceratops as haste later. Usually it's better to try and get your your Barkhide Trolls down later and like use Ceratops for surprise later. And stuff like this. I'm like, how much do I want to value this attack with the Wildborn Preserver? And like, also, I could use the Castle Garenbrig ability, so I could make 6 mana. Yeah, it was that. Maybe cast 2 Barkhide Trolls and Ooze. You can't use the ability with the Preserver, as far as I know. Maybe you can, but as far as I know, you can't. So that's basically what I'm debating. Like, do I want to play the Ceratops attack, or do I want to play Barkhide Troll and level up my Preserver? Or do I want to play 2 Barkhide Trolls and level up my Preserver? So it's kind of interesting all around. And also I want to consider, like, what if they have a Haste or Gust, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I played Ooze? Oh, interesting. Oh, I think I got scared of Uro here. I was like, what if they have Uro? So yeah, I don't play the Troll, I play the Ooze, and I figure... and I just attack like this. I'm like, this way I can still eat their graveyards. That way, like, it's going to be hard for them to escape their Uro later if they have a ECD, so yeah. Because the thing is, their Nissa wasn't that scary, because as you see, they don't actually have forests in play right now. So Nissa's actually not doing that much. Like, it's making 3/3s, and if they play a forest, it can do stuff. Like, let's say they get a couple forests in play, but I'm just saying this isn't the most threatening Nissa, and they actually miss on a land here, so now I know they have 4 spells in hand, most likely. And now I pass, so yeah. So that's what I did. So basically making a 4/4 means those lands can't block it easily. It's kind of interesting. I could have played Barkhide Troll, made it a 5/5. But I think I got a little bit scared of Uro, though it's kind of hard to eat the Uro here, so I don't even know if that made sense, but we are where we are. So they Shatter the Sky, so now I'm like, oh yeah, I get sweet value, I get to eat something, so I eat their Teferi, draw a card, they animate the land, and now it's my turn, and now I just play the Ceratops, and here you can see now playing it last turn paid off a bit, because now I get to play a Haste Creature, which is really good. I even drew a land, which is perfect. I remember I was saying land. When I untapped, because now I can play my Ceratops, give it a haste, attack Nissa. If they have Gust, it's really bad for me, but, like, you're not going to play around it. I don't know why I was even mentioning it. I was just saying it's like we have a locked great turn, but it resolves, so that's great, because now you have a great turn lined up. I get attack, and their Nissa's going to die, or they're going to lose their land, so that's just good. And then I can just play a Barkhide Troll, yeah. So I just start getting some of these Barkhide Trolls out of my hands and into play. So I attack the Nissa, they Growth Spiral, they block, and they play Teferi, bounce my Barkhide Troll, and pass back. And let's see what they do. They play Uro. They almost escape it, but they can't quite, so they pass back, so I'll just play that turn again. They play Uro, and they just like put a couple lands in play and untap that. So I draw Vivian, so it's pretty complicated here. Now my options are like... I could play Ooze and, well, it's sort of like, what do I want, like I have this Castle Garenbrig, so do I want to use the extra mana, like, so first of all, it's like, do I want to play Ooze first, like, what if they eat it? I guess it's kind of a simple turn in a way, but yeah. I decided to play Ooze, that way if they have Gust, then I can play Vivian, and then when Vivian's in play, I can, like, do stuff, good stuff with Vivian. Basically guarantee one of their planeswalkers dies, get Vivian in play, get some value going. So, but I debated here a bit. I think that I'm like, yeah, I'll play Ooze, it resolves. I think I go to attack. Because I still have the option. I could like play Vivian and try and kill her. But I decided no, I just want to eat the Uro and just, and let the Nissa. They actually have Gust, so maybe they misplayed there. Because I am going to eat the Uro. Maybe that means I have an Uro in hand, but I'm not going to, mess around too much. Let's just eat the Uro there. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what I would think about here. Maybe I would think about, do I want to eat more stuff? But then I was like, no, I'll just give this Trample, which obviously, yeah, it's very good. Because it means that Nissa's dead to any of the 3 power creatures next turn. Then I have one card. Now I play the Barkhide Troll and pass. And now they're going to play a big Krasis. So now I untap. Now my options are kind of interesting. But let's say I attack their Nissa. She's going to die because it's pro blue and Teferi. That way if they block, I can Vivian minus. If they block the Barkhide Troll, I can Vivian minus kill the Krasis. And so I just start by doing that. So yeah. Make sure the Nissa dies and attack the Teferi. And if they don't block, then I could, refigure after, maybe play some creatures. Maybe play Preserver and play Barkhide Troll and grow it to be big. That would probably be what I would consider if they didn't block or something like this. Since that they could just attack the Vivian and then that's bad. And then I just play a Barkhide Troll to block and pass. Now, and then things get pretty good for me because they don't have a play. They just play a Holophon and pass. Here I debate a bit. I'm like, maybe they have Shatter the Sky, because with Teferi Plus they can do it at instant speed. Like, how do I want to plus the Vivian? What if they have Nightpack Ambusher? What if they have Sublime Epiphany? What if they have Shark Typhoon? Stuff like this. I think about this stuff a bit. I decided to put a counter on each creature and attack. I think maybe I should have put 2 on the Barkhide Troll, because if they had a flash creature and they eat my Shark and they eat my Nightpack, I'd rather my Barkhide Troll just be bigger in the long run. It might work better. Now they can attack my Vivian, but they could Wrath end of turn, so I didn't really want to play another creature out, because I could block with the Mobilized District. I could play because I didn't really want to play a creature, and then it just gets Shatter the Sky, but I don't know. That was my logic at the time. Maybe I should have, because maybe I want to keep the District alive. Then I block, I untap, and now basically they don't have good plays, they just take 1,000,000 damage. And they play an Ugin and they die. Because I didn't play the Questing Beast, because basically, they could have Sublime Epiphany here, for example, and I just felt there's not a reason to do anything. I can just hold this because they're pretty low on life and see what happens. That was just my logic, and then I play that, and then they die. Well, I guess I'll show why. They play Ugin, but they're at 6 life, so they die. And yeah, that was that game. Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure, but that was just the logic for my plays.